Welcome back to the Michigan Football Network. Now, we are here to provide you with some fantastic news. As Lions fans already know, I assume, Aiden Hutchinson is here to stay, baby. And I feel like this was an obvious thing, but the fact that it took this long was kind of odd. I don't think there was ever a doubt in anyone's mind that Hutch was going to sign here, long term. It was just when and for how much. And we saw T.J. Watt, Miles Garrett, Micah Parsons all get deals relatively recently. Um, but it was kind of a sticking point. Like, man, the longer we wait, the more we're gonna have to pay him, and he's probably gonna want to be the highest paid. Well, luckily for us, he is not the highest paid. He took, I think, about $1.5 million per year less than Micah Parsons, but he has a little bit more guarantees. So the details of it, I know we've already heard, but 180 million over 4 years, 141 guaranteed. That is $45 million per season for Mr. Aiden Hutchinson. Cool thing is, it doesn't kick in right away. So when it comes to it, that number will probably look even better. And it's one of those things that like I said, we all knew it was coming. We all knew it was going to be, one of the highest, if not the highest paid. But the fact that he took a little bit less, he got a little bit more guaranteed. Just beautiful, beautiful moment, I think, for, the Lions this year with how many extensions they've been able to give out. Penei Sewell, Amon Ra, and obviously Aiden Hutchinson. The biggest ones were the Sewell, Amon Ra, and Hutchinson extension. And then obviously they gave out the DJ Reed deal as well. So they're out here handing out money, but it's well deserved for the guys that got it. So obviously Aiden Hutchinson, his home is here in Detroit, man. Like like I said, there was no doubt in my mind that he was gonna, sign an extension here for a lot of money. But the fact that we can finally put it behind us is awesome. Now we can just focus on football. I feel like that was the only real thing this season, like non-football, that was kind of looming over the Lions. You know what I mean? Like the JMO extension, oh, that happened. And then the Aiden Hutchinson extension, and then that happened. And obviously, people are still going to be waiting on Laporta and Branch and Gibbs and da 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 da. But that ain't happening this year, guys. So we don't even have to think about it anymore. But with that being said, there's really not much else to say about the Hutchinson deal simply because we kind of all saw it coming. James, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, hopefully if my connection can stick on here. My apologies about that, guys. Um, my thoughts are just wow. Like, don't get me wrong, we all expected it. We all saw this coming. There was no way we were going to let him walk. Um, Teams don't let their best players walk just because of money, unless you're the Tigers, but that's a different topic. Uh, had to throw the gut shot in there. And um, it's like you said, it's nice to be done. The one thing that I feel in the overall, uh, I don't want to quite say vibe, but in the comment sections I've seen, not just with Lions fans, but NFL fans, talking about it on social media, is I don't think a lot of people realize that this is a hometown discount. Like, don't get me wrong, he's still getting 45 a year. He's, not gonna, go hungry. But he didn't reset the market. He got 2 million per year less than Micah Parsons, and like I said, I'm not saying he gave us an extravagant discount, but I was assuming once Micah got 47, he would have got 50. He would have been, that next tier up, just like Garrett got or Max Crosby got 35, and then Garrett got 40, then Parsons got 47. I thought it was just going to keep going up and up and up. He slid in under that, saving us at least a couple. I feel like, maybe if even if 50 was a little high, he could have easily at least asked to match Parsons. So, in my opinion, he gave us at least 2, 3 million of a little bit of breathing room. So, like I said, I'm not going to say like he was on clearance or anything like that. But I feel like he didn't scrape the plate and get every single penny he could have milked out of that contract. Because I do feel like he could have uh, set the market again with us or with someone else.
Yeah, I definitely agree there. I mean, I don't know it. It's one of those things that it's like such a barely a difference that it's like doesn't really matter. But at the same time, when you're this close to that cap wall like we are, you know, a couple million here, a couple million there, like Amon Ra taking a little bit less, and
Yep.
JMO taking a little bit less, and you know these guys able to re-sign for a little bit less. Panay Sewell's a perfect example, man. He should have got a lot more money based on what other tackles got paid. So that makes it to where maybe we can, you know, extend a guy that we normally wouldn't be able to, like a Brian Branch or a Sam Laporta or these guys
Exactly.
that we're talking about later.
And I've seen some people online, and like I said, I get it's not big savings, but if you save 2 million per year on Hutch, like you mentioned, a couple with Panay, a couple with St. Brown. I don't have all the numbers in front of me, but like, as you mentioned, we still have Sam Laporta, we still have Brian Branch, we still have Jack Campbell, we still have there's one more, Campbell,
Jameer.
Branch, Jameer Gibbs. So I'm like, we still have four guys we need to pay. So I know, well, Saquon was the first one to make 20 million a year, but I know running backs don't normally cost too much compared to these other positions. So I mean, even if you could just get those four guys to save 2 million each, that's half of Jameer's contract per year. So a little bit will add up, and like you said, I'm kind of just happy it's done. Like it wasn't like Scooble for a perfect example. It wasn't like, is it going to happen? Is it not? We all knew this was
Hmm.
going to happen. It was just when. It's just nice that it's out of the way. Here's the numbers. Everyone's good with it. Hutch gets a much deserved raise. And like I said, I feel like he left some on the plate. I'm not going to say, oh my gosh, what a discount. It's not like he signed for 20 million, but I just feel like he, like I said, he didn't quite um wear out his welcome or be like, hey, I don't care who else you have to sign. I want. Because, like I said, I really do feel like he could have gotten more.
Oh yeah. And I mean, especially if he went somewhere else. I mean, I think the big thing is yes, obviously, we're using the word hometown discount. Not, at least I'm not necessarily using it because he's from Michigan. We're using it in terms of like he
This is
wants to be here, so he's
yes,
going to take less to be here. The last thing I want to say before we move on to our next topic is Micah Parsons got 4 years, 186 million, right? So he got 6 million more total than Aiden Hutchinson, right? However, he got 136 million guaranteed. Hutch got 4 more million guaranteed or 5 more million guaranteed. So, in my assumption, I'm thinking negotiations went something like this. I want to be the highest paid. Well, we can't necessarily make you the highest paid, but what we can do is give you the most guarantees, and it's going to essentially equal this, not equal the same amount of money, but you're getting that money guaranteed
yeah,
in a way instead of getting it over the contract's life. So I think that kind of goes into it too. You know, it's obviously a hometown discount, but it's also just really good structuring of the deal by our guys, which obviously they always do. We've been amazing at structuring deals for the last few years now. So
yeah. My hat's off to the front office staff, and I don't just mean Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell. Like they always get the credit, and don't get me wrong, they do a shit ton of work and deserve credit.
mhm.
But unfortunately, I when I started this sentence, I had two names in my head. Um, Disner is one, and I'm spacing on the one other guy's name. I can picture his face in my head. Um, Damn, that's gonna bother me. I'm gonna have to look it up during a different segment, so that way we're not just having idle time. But I'll get his name. But they have been doing consistently great work. They even had front office. Um, I can't exactly remember what job, but interviews with other franchises that were trying to poach them away from us and whatnot. I do think it's only a matter of time until we lose some of those guys. But
Mhm.
for now, it's not just Brad Holmes in that front office. Granted, he's doing his thing, let Brad cook. But that whole front office is a well-oiled machine. Everyone's working together. It's I'm still in the process of getting used to having a competent front office in one of our Detroit teams. It's really nice.
Yeah, and that's the thing, you know. That's how you make teams great, in my opinion, is when everybody's on the same page. Like you hear it all the time with the Lions, you know, it's like, oh, we all love it here. We're all on the same page. We all think the same way. But when you hear that, it's like, yeah, the coaching staff. But then it's like you need the GM, the coaching staff, the players, the scouting department, the pro scouting department, the contract guys. They all have to be on the same page. And that's how you create essentially, I'm not going to say a dynasty because we haven't won anything yet, really, but how you create, a powerhouse, I guess, like the Lions have the last few years. With that being said, though, we are going to move to a little bit more negative topic. Nothing terrible, but we have some injuries going on this week, unfortunately. Obviously, with the bye week, you think everybody should be healthy coming out, other than the guys that we know aren't healthy. But unfortunately, this week, Kirby Joseph, well, at least today, Kirby Joseph did not practice. Um, Craig Reynolds either. Taylor Decker had a light practice along with Avante Maddox, Muhammad, Malcolm Rodriguez, Daniel Thomas, and Sione Vaki. Good news is Malcolm Rodriguez is back at practice. That's a big plus. Obviously, there's potential he plays this week, but we'll have to see. I don't know if they'll really rush him out there. I wouldn't be surprised if he plays though. But Terrion Arnold is back at practice, fully practicing. So sounds like he's probably going to play on Sunday. So that's going to be a really big, pickup, I guess, for the Lions because he has not played with us the last few games. And then on top of that, Brian Branch is going to be back after his suspension. So if Kirby Joseph is healthy, we will be back at quote unquote full strength because obviously DJ Reed's still going to be out this week. I would guess he'll probably be back week 12 or 13. I know they've been talking about him coming back against the Giants. But if I'm being honest with you, I don't know if we really rush him back to play the Giants. Sorry, maybe that's crazy of me to say, but I don't really think we're gonna need him that much against the Giants. So if it were me, I'd rest him, or I would let him play a very small snap count just to kind of get back into the flow of things after being out a couple weeks. Um, and then last but not least, Chauncey Gardner Johnson signed in Chicago. So, and he's on the active roster. So that means he's going to play. And look, man, I know a lot of Lions fans absolutely despise this guy. I don't necessarily despise him. I just don't really like him. I didn't even like him when he played here, if I'm being honest with you. I was not that big of a fan of him just as a person. I thought he was a solid player, don't get me wrong, but we've seen over the past year or two since he's left us, essentially, he's kind of fallen off, which not really sure why that is. It might be the mentality that he carries, and that's kind of part of the reason why a lot of people don't like him. But I could also just see, going to a new scheme, coming from the line, going from the Eagles to the Lions, back to the Eagles, then getting traded to Houston and then getting cut. And it's just like the ups and downs of that. So for him, I hope he gets better. But for us, I'm glad the Bears signed him because if he's on the active roster, that means he's likely going to play. And I would love to see him play against us yet again. Just
Yeah.
because it's fun to see.
Yeah, eventually when he ends up getting cut in like 3 weeks, I hope the Packers sign him.
Right? True. Just drag them down. Um,
Yeah, as you mentioned, he's not what he used to be as a player, and I don't know if it's just the injuries because he was banged up obviously the year with us. Then he's just been off and on injured for since us. I don't know too much about his career prior to us, to be honest. So I don't know if he's had it his whole career just off and on injuries, but he kind of seems like almost the safety version of Davenport at this point. So I don't know if his play's fallen off because he's just trying to go
mhm.
through not go through the motions, but he just doesn't have that elite speed or that stuff he used to have. But um, since his time in Detroit, I have seen multiple highlights of him getting smoked. So I wasn't surprised when Houston cut him before the season, and I'm not upset that a division rival signed him.
Well, and what I think is really funny about him is that I'm sure everybody remembers the comments that he made after the Super Bowl win in Philadelphia. Um, or yeah, I think it was after their Super Bowl win, where he made comments about the Lions because he was talking about how um, we didn't make it there or something like that. And I remember a lot of fans being upset about that.
I
Um,
don't even remember that.
Oh, okay. I can't remember if that was exactly what he said, but he said something along
That
those
doesn't
lines.
surprise me. He's always
Yeah.
running his mouth.
And I
So,
just remember for like 3 days, Lions fans were pissed about it because we had just lost to the Commanders, I think it was,
oh,
and he
okay.
had some comments to say about it or whatever. But with that being said, hopefully we can line him up against JMO. I'd just love to see
Oh my
that
God,
personally.
please.
um, but with that being said, last but not least, in terms of game stuff, we have the trade deadline coming up. Okay, and as we all know, the Lions are in rumors of being interested in a trade. Obviously, there's two positions that make the most sense, but we've seen some players get moved already in those positions, which would be edge and corner. Today we saw the Eagles trade for a corner from the New York Jets. Oh my gosh, his name just totally is spacing out of my head. I literally wrote an article about him, or not about him, but with him in it yesterday. Let's see here.
Wasn't it Miller or something like that? I can look it
Michael
up here.
Carter. Michael Carter.
Carter.
Okay. I keep thinking of Bryce Mitchell for some reason. I don't know why the
Hey,
other
when I think Jets
Jets
corners
corner.
besides Revis, I think of D. Milner, so don't worry.
Valid. Sauce Gardner's obvious pop up to me, but I definitely hear you on the D Milliner. I thought he was going to be really, really
Oh,
good.
I wanted him for the
Uh,
Lions so bad.
Me too. You know who else I wanted? Justin Gilbert. Thank God we didn't draft
That
either
was
of
the
those
OKC
dudes.
guy, right?
Uh, OKC.
I mean, Oklahoma State
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
for his college. Okay.
yeah.
He ended up going
Um,
to the Browns?
yeah, he did
Okay.
that was the Manziel draft. They took Justin Gilbert and Manziel in the first round. I don't know if there's ever been a draft as bad as that,
But
but
hey, at least they didn't take a running back and a linebacker like the Lions did.
yeah, right.
They got two
Idiots.
impact positions.
um, but with that being said, we saw the Eagles trade for Michael Carter the second, which was a guy that a lot of Lions fans were interested in, and it would have made a lot of sense for the Lions to be interested in him. The article I wrote was essentially going down, talking about 6 players I thought we could realistically trade for, and what the values would be. Michael Carter the second, I thought he would get a 2026 sixth round pick, and what ended up happening was the Eagles traded a sixth round pick and wide receiver John Mechie for Carter and a seventh. So essentially the value that I said. So if you want to see some in-depth conversation about what we're gonna have, what the conversation we're about to have, a little bit more in depth with statistics and things like that, go to MichiganFootballNetwork.com and it will be the first article that you see. So with that being said, I'm just going to throw out some names here, and we're going to have a short conversation about what we would think these guys would do for us, what they're worth, whatever the case may be. So Tariq Woolen is the first one that a lot of people have been talking about lately, which makes a lot of sense to me, right? He's 6'4", 210 pounds, 4.2 or 4.26 40-yard dash. So he's got all the physical traits, right, that you want out of a corner. I mean, come on, dude. 6'4", run the 4.26. That's insane. All right. Now, he is having a bit of a down year in 2022 and 2023. He had his best seasons, kind of by far. This year, he's not really playing that great, but I mean, it is what it is. He's got an abysmal PFF score of 47.2, where his best season was 75.0, which was pretty high. It's pretty high ranking for corners. They usually don't get very high grades. Point being, I think the real big problem with Woolen is it's just going to be the same thing for the Lions too. So when I say this, think of it that way. They went from a cover 3, like Legion of Boom type of coverage team in 22 and 23 to now they play a lot more man coverage, zone match scheme coverage. So it's not just straight up cover 3, we're dropping back and that's really all you got to do. You got one job as a corner. With the Lions, it's going to be very similar to what it is with Seattle right now. So that's why I'm not necessarily in love with that deal. Plus, it would probably cost at least a 4th round pick. So I just feel, Woolen would be great for the physical stuff. Like, would I be mad if we traded for him? No, not at all, because of the physical stuff that we could teach him how to do the other things, I think. However, the fact that he's had so many problems with Seattle doing the same thing we would ask him to do, I'm just not that sold on it personally. Um, but again, he's young. He is on a contract year though, so we would have to re-sign him. I just don't know if that's really in the cards for the Lions this year. But with that being said, what are your thoughts on Woolen?
Um, you, per usual, take half my argument in your um, in your section there. I love his size. 6'4" for a corner is practically unheard of. The only person that comes to mind when I think of a large corner like that, Richard Sherman. And anyone who's been around football long enough knows, at least in college, he played wide receiver and he converted to corner. So, who knows? Maybe Wolin can just convert to receiver and use that 6'4" speed and all that. But no, I really like him. I like his physical intangibles. He's still only 26. He's still super young. He's probably, in terms of the people on the market, the number one guy at corner I would go for just because of his physical traits. And I mean, you hit the nail on the head. We run a similar scheme to them, but I would, and maybe this is just partially me drinking the Kool-Aid. I tried to have as much unbias in my um, thought process as possible, but I feel if we can get, and no offense to them, but if we can get second, or not even second, third and fourth string corners and second string safeties and all these guys last week to shut the Bucks down, I feel like we can get something out of Wolin that he hasn't lately been able to tap into. Maybe it's a coaching staff thing, maybe it's a confidence thing. I know Goff mentioned when he got traded, like it felt really good to go to a team that actually wanted him. So I'm like, you can say that about any trade, and I mean, but just maybe. But between his physical skills, like you mentioned, his blazing fast speed for a corner, our team's need at corner, his age, and to me, I think there's a chance you can get him for a fifth instead of a fourth. But if so, I'm maybe like a fourth, and if we get like a six back or something like that. But this is one of the guys based on potential that I would like us to go get more so than some of the other names I've heard brought up.
Yeah, and I totally agree on that with you. In my article, I mentioned him at the end as one of the guys that I would like to go after because of all the things that you just mentioned. I mean, he's got a lot of stuff you can't teach, and I believe this coaching staff would be able to teach him. But with that being said, our second name is Cam Taylor Britt from the Bengals. Now, very, very similar situation as Woolen. The only real difference that I see is Cam is a little more consistent, but he never had the highs that Woolen has had, and obviously he does not have the size speed ratio that Woolen has. Cam is 5'11", I think like 200 pounds. I mean, he ran a 4.38, so he's not slow by any means, but he's not a guy you're going to go throw a dart at just because of his physical prowess. You know what I mean? And the fact that he's been benched quite a lot by the Bengals this year is not a good sign. He's got his career low PFF grade this year. Also not a good sign. Now, he is a little bit more, I would say he's a little bit better run defender than maybe a guy like Woolen would be. But that's really just because of his willingness. But then again, I don't really know how big of a difference it is between the two realistically. And I think Britt would be able to be had for probably a seventh round pick, if I'm being honest with you. He's a guy that, I mean, Zach Taylor, their head coach, literally came out and said, yeah, because he was a healthy scratch against I think it was Pittsburgh, and they essentially said they asked why was he a healthy scratch, and the head coach just said we got other guys that play the same position that we want to get looks at. And that is not a good sign when that's how your coach is responding to why were you benched. Yeah, we've just got other guys. All right. Well, that's all right. Gotcha. But with that being said, I wouldn't mind trading for Cam. He's still young, 26 years old. He's got a lot of the physicals that you want out of a corner. And I mean, Brad Holmes loves those 5'11", 200-pound guys. But I'm just not that sold that he would really help our team that much this year for us to give up a pick for him.
Yeah, I agree with pretty much everything you said. Besides the trade deadline saying like he's the guy who could be had if you're looking for cornerbacks, I never heard of this guy before then, to be honest. And the Bengals have a pretty rough defense, as everyone knows who's watched the Bengals, and he's not even good enough to play for that defense.
Hmm.
So, between, and obviously you can't hit on all your draft picks, but Brad Holmes has found some diamonds in the later rounds, and I would just rather trust Brad Holmes with the name out of a hat draft pick rather than trade something for Cam Taylor Britt. So for this particular cornerback, I'm just not interested.
Yeah, and I get that too, especially because he's on a 1 year deal. It's really just a rental. And at that point, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and act like he's a bum or anything, but I feel like the guys that we just got off the street are probably pretty comparable. So I don't think it's really necessarily worth the move. And then the next one is Alante Taylor from the Saints. Taylor probably is the best corner on this list, if I'm being honest with you, just simply because of what he offers at his age and everything, which also means he's probably the least likely for us to go get because he's going to cost the most. It sounds like the Saints want something like a second round pick for him, but it also sounds like you could probably get him for a third, maybe a conditional pick or something like that. But again, I just don't think this is really that realistic for that reason. That's a little too much for us right now to give up for a guy who, again, is on a contract year. But he is easily the best corner available right now due to, like I said, his age and his play. I mean, that's not really saying a ton either because when you're available on the trade market at 26 years old to a team who is rebuilding, that probably means you're not a building block essentially. And they have a lot of young corners. I could definitely see them willing to get rid of him, but at the same time, it's not a fire sale situation where they're just going to get rid of him because they have to. Um, the big thing too is he is going to ask for quite a bit of money when he hits the free agent market, and I would say probably between 15 and 18 million per year, if not more than that, depending on how he plays down the stretch. Um, I just like I said, I just don't really see this one happening personally. It just doesn't really make a lot of sense for those reasons, and I assume you share the same thoughts. So we will move on to the next name that is a little bit more likely for us to make a deal, although not necessarily a given. Jaquan McMillan from the Broncos, he is more of a slot corner. Probably would only play slot for us. He's only 5'9", 180 pounds on a contract year. He is only 25 years old, though, and he is playing pretty well this year. He has a PFF grade of 71.3 with a run defense grade of 75.5. So he's a bit of a feisty corner. He's kind of what we like in our slot. However, I don't really know how much we want a slot corner right now. We have guys like Brian Branch who can play there, Rock Sin, Avante Maddox, uh, uh, Amik Robertson, obviously, who's our main guy right now, with most of our guys being hurt. I just don't know how much we really need the player. Although he is a good player and probably would be worth a 6 round pick, like he'll probably go for. And I see the Broncos trying to get rid of him because they just drafted Jade Barron. So it makes a lot of sense. He's on a contract year. You just drafted his replacement. Try to go get some value for him on the trade deadline. Which, again, I don't know how realistic this is for the Lions necessarily, but I could see it in a lot of ways because of you're not given much for a pretty good player.
Per usual, I agree with you. He is a pretty good player, and if he if he can be had for a six, I think that might be even steal, even to be honest with you. I just, as you mentioned, I don't know how it fits with the Lions. If I was a different team, I would easily give up a 6 round pick for him. He's a pretty solid slot corner, and like you said, he is kind of locked into that slot I have him listed here at 5'9", 180. So he is a almost, I don't quite want to say an Amik Robertson clone, but he's just a smaller guy who's very feisty and can get the job done. But we have that guy. We have Amik Robertson, and then we have Brian Branch, and when healthy, we have Maddox. So good player. If it only takes a sixth, I mean, I'll be shocked. To be honest, I think Broncos could, in the right market, get a fourth for him potentially. I just don't see him as a need for our team.
Yeah, for sure. And I could definitely see a team giving more than a sixth for him. With the research I was doing, looking around, it kind of seemed like a sixth was the going rate, but I saw a few fifths. So I could see, a possibility of a fourth, especially if there's a bidding war because, there's not that many good young corners available on the deadline. So with
Yeah, he's
that
only
being said,
25. He's pretty solid.
yeah, exactly. And I mean, this year he's only getting $1 million. So you're basically getting for free, and then you have to re-sign him, which he's probably not going to cost that much in
I
the long
wouldn't be
run.
shocked if Denver just keeps him
I
and even
wouldn't be
re-signs him.
either, but the only problem is, like I said, they just drafted a guy to play his exact position in the top 20. So it's like
Can he
you
play
can't,
outside? I know McMillan
nah.
can't, but is
Jade
Lattimore
Barron
or Johnny Bear? I'm
Jade
sorry.
Barron can't. I'm not going to say he can't, but he is definitely more of a slot
Okay.
safety type of corner. So I don't know if he can. I just don't think they drafted him to do that, and I don't know if you want to put your first rounder in a weird spot. Um, but with that being said, I would not be surprised if they got some better value. But last but not least, at least for corners, before we talk edges, we already talked edges last week, so that'll be pretty quick. Razul Douglas. I think he might be my favorite possibility out of all of these guys. I know, we talked about Tariq Woolen and how cool that might be, but we also have to re-sign him. We don't know if he's going to play that well in our scheme. But a guy like Razul Douglas, okay, obviously he's 31 years old, so it's not ideal in terms of age. But at the end of the day, these are all rentals. Who gives a shit how old they are? You know what I mean? It's like it only matters if you're going to keep them after the year, which I doubt any of these guys would have been kept. So he's my favorite because he's got some veteran, you know, he brings some veteran presence with him to the locker room, and then of course he has always been a pretty damn good corner. This past year he signed a 1 year deal with the Miami Dolphins like way into the summer, and it was kind of surprising to me that it took him that long, but he's playing pretty well over there and they suck. So they're going to be in a fire sale and he's one of those guys that they're going to try to get rid of simply because he's playing well and he's old and they're not going to re-sign him. It makes no sense for them to keep him. I mean, realistically. I think he'll go for a fifth round pick. I could see a sixth though. So cross our fingers and hope the Lions can get him for a sixth. But he's my ideal candidate. I mean, this year he's got a 74.5 overall PFF grade, which ranks 13th among all cornerbacks. Which, like I said, corners don't usually get high rankings or high grades. He has allowed 24 catches on 36 targets, 210 yards and one touchdown with a QBR of 91.2. However, he also adds 30 tackles, showing his ability to get down in the run game. And he can play all over the field at slot, at outside, and safety. This season, he's playing the majority of his snaps on the outside. So I think he could come in, and honestly, he might. I'm not going to say he is better than Terrion Arnold right now, but he might be just as good because he is one of those guys that has been consistently pretty good his entire career. Now, is he going to come in and be a shutdown corner? No, none of these guys are. So I just think he offers us the best bang for our buck, essentially, with it being a fifth or sixth round pick. But what are your thoughts on Rasul Douglas?
He's actually a name I haven't really heard of much in this deadline, but it makes perfect sense because uh, the Dolphins are 1-6 or whatever they are, and 1-7,
Hmm.
whatever they are. And he is a vet, like you said. He's 30, 31, something like that. I I just got a bad taste in my mouth about him, and maybe it's just from his time with the Packers. Maybe I don't know. Like you mentioned, he's got a solid stat sheet. He's been playing pretty well, and maybe other than uh, Thomas, the best corner we named at least for the here and now. But I don't know. Like, there's no logistical reason why I wouldn't want him. I just something in my gut says that's just not the guy I want. And it's been wrong before, and thank God that's why Brett Holmes does the job and not me. But yeah, I don't know. Just something doesn't sit right. He's got more pass deflections, more tackles, more forced fumbles than anyone else we've named, including Thomas. But out of these candidates, I still like Woolen based on just like the potential. I don't know if it's because we kind of have our corners set, if healthy, with Reed, Terrion, and Amik in the slot. Obviously, Branch would be the safety with Kirby, and then we can just kind of bet on the high upside with Woolen. And with Douglas, you kind of just know what he is. Like, he's not going to get any better, like Woolen or someone else could potentially. So just personally, I like one of the earlier options better. But I will say, like I said, statistically and whatnot, Douglas has the advantage on all these guys that you've named so far.
Yeah, so and funny enough, this is the first time I think we've disagreed in like four shows. But I disagree completely, and it's for the exact reasons you said. We don't have consistency. We have a bunch two guy like Reed, he's been up and down. He's played well after the first game, but then he got injured. Terrion Arnold is always up and down. Amik Robertson is pretty solid, but he can have his inconsistencies too. That's why I think we need a guy like Douglas because then it's like, man, Terrion's not having a good game. Put Razul out there. He'll do his job. You know what I mean? It's not and Woolen is the one I would say like I would like him for the upside, of course, but once again, are we going to re-sign him? I doubt it. And it's like I don't think we even want to go sign another corner because of all the money we're giving to DJ Reed right now. And then Terrion Arnold is going to need an extension in 2 years. So kind of
We'll
have
see
to think
about
about it
that.
that way too. Yeah, we will see about that, I guess. But
Like, that one's not a given. I wouldn't put him in the
yeah,
class of Gibbs and Laporta and all that yet.
right.
I like the
Definitely
guy more
not.
than a lot, but we'll see.
Yeah. But and that's exactly why I like Douglas more than the other guys because he offers a veteran consistency that like we need on this team right now. Like DJ Reed is our most veteran corner and I mean he's been a number 2 corner his pretty much his whole career over there in New York. So I just think Razul offers us exactly what we're looking for to make this stretch into the playoffs and the Super Bowl and things like that. Which honestly, I would have to say it probably is because of his time with the Packers, because he was a damn good player in Green Bay, and I definitely
Oh yeah.
remember he gave me some bad memories. So I definitely hear where
Absolutely.
you're coming from there.
And as I mentioned before, like I said, I do try to take away the home bias and whatnot, but I'm like, I don't know, maybe like you said, and I'm looking at his stats now, his best years were in Green Bay. So maybe I just am used to him beating us because that was a few years ago, so that was prior to Dan Campbell era. So he was in
Hmm.
Green Bay around the Matt Patricia time. So maybe I just heard his name making plays and I'm like, F that dude.
Yeah.
I don't know. But like I said, I'm like just the gut feeling. But normally I'm a huge, as if you watch the show or follow me on X, normally stats are my everything. And this guy has better stats than anyone else we brought up. I don't know. I just
Right.
don't have it.
I hear you there. But with that being said, edge rushers that are available for trade, like I said, we kind of went through this last week, so I'm going to make this kind of short. Just because the trade deadline's coming up, I just want you guys to keep these names in your head. Um, Jalen Phillips from Miami is a big one we've been linked to all the time. However, I don't know how well he fits here simply because he's more of a finesse, full, like specifically a pass rusher. Like he's not a guy we're going to go put out there to stop the run necessarily. And obviously, when Davenport comes back, it would be nice to be able to swap them off the field. But for what you have to pay this guy, I just don't know if I want to give up. A fourth round pick for him and a sixth round pick to pay him. I think he's going to make what 20 million this year or something like that. No, let me see.
I
Um,
think it's less than that.
yeah, it's not terrible this year, but he's on a contract year, so he's going to be asking for 20 million or more from us, which again, I don't really feel good about giving a fourth round pick
What if
for a
we go get
rental.
him and Douglas in the same deal then, since they're both in Miami?
I would be cool with that for a fourth round pick, I think.
Because Phillips is
Um,
my favorite D end of the group, so I'll be happy and you'll be happy.
See, and that's see that I find that funny because it's like Phillips is the one that I dislike a lot personally. Like, and it's just because of his fit here, man. Like, he's a really good player. Don't get me wrong. Like, I would not be mad if we traded for him. Don't get me wrong. But he's not my favorite on this list simply because of the what we'd have to give up for him, and because, like I said, he's not really a run defender. We with what we do, we kind of would have to take him off the field at times simply because
Yeah,
of how we scheme. So that
yeah,
kind of scares me a little bit, but
he'll take over the James Houston role and come in on third downs and whatnot.
yeah,
But
for
I feel
sure.
like
And
he would excel at that.
yeah, and that's totally fine. And that's the only problem I have with that is I think we can get somebody like that for less. And
Fair
obviously
enough.
they might not be as good necessarily as Jalen Phillips, but if we're giving up a sixth round pick, we can get a guy that can make a difference off the edge. I think I'd prefer to do that. But point being, he's a solid player, and I would not be mad at all if we traded for him. And I mean, he was one of the guys that I would prefer. Um, you know, he's probably third on my list, I would say, based on the guys that are available right now. But with that being said, another Miami defender, since we're kind of on the Miami defender wave right now, with will be now three in a row. Bradley Chubb could be available for probably a fifth or a sixth round pick. But his biggest issue, he fits well with us. He's got 4 sacks this year, or probably has more now. This article is a little out of date, but he's their best pass rusher. But he's also a solid run defender. But he's getting like $30+ million the next 3 seasons. I don't really see the Lions making that move personally because even though you can cut him after the year and not pay him anything, I just don't really know if they want to even deal with that. And I don't think I want to deal with that. Uh, if they
Especially after signing Hutch his.
right, if they make this deal, they're definitely cutting him after the season. There's
Yeah.
absolutely no way they keep him. They can't restructure that. Unfortunately, I mean, as much as I would like to have him, I just don't think it's a realistic possibility. My favorite is Arden Key, which we talked about last week already. He, I'm not going to say he's better than Jalen Phillips because he's not, but I think he's very comparable in the way that he plays and in the style that he plays. And I think the fact that we could get him for a sixth round pick, I would take that over getting Phillips for a fourth, simply because, man, where we're at right now, we don't necessarily need. I mean, Muhammad's playing really well. We don't need a guy like Phillips that it's like, yeah, you're our starter at the other edge, and then sometimes we're going to take you out. We really just need another body we can throw out there that can rush the passer, that can stop the run. And I think that's exactly what Arden Key is. And when you're a team like Tennessee, I think you could get him for a sixth, maybe even a seventh round pick, if I'm being honest with you. I would not be that surprised. He's not playing that well this year anyway. But like I said last week, when you have Hutch and McNeil and Reeder and Williams and Muhammad and all these guys on the defensive line, you're going to play a little bit better than it's when it's pretty much just you and Jeff Simmons. So, but with that being said, before we move on, do you have any thoughts on the last few names?
I'll touch on Key because I know I mentioned it last podcast. I'll keep it short. He might be one of my least favorite on the list, and his name has been linked to us for years. I think it was either this offseason or last offseason. It was for sure one of them that we brought him in for an offseason workout. He worked out for us, and we didn't sign him. So I don't know if the workout was unimpressive. I don't know if just the numbers didn't work out, whatever. But either way, we had a chance at him and missed out. And I know for several seasons we've had trade deadline talks about him coming here. And I mean, he's not any younger. He's not even. But you said he's having a bad year. I understand they have no one else to block besides Simmons over there, so it might be a part of where he's playing. But and you're right because he's not as good as Phillips, but he would cost a lot less because of that. And we do have a pretty good D line if everyone's healthy. we still are waiting on Davenport and Pascal to come back. So if you're talking about just bodies who can occasionally rush the passer and whatnot, those are two right there that we just have to wait on, and we get them back for free. Um, but yeah, I'm just not big on Key. Um, I still like Phillips, and if, in my opinion, that we were, you know what, I know his name's gonna come up later, so I'll talk about him when his name comes up later. But yeah, I'm not too big on Key.
Uh, which is valid. The other Tennessee edge is Draymond Jones, which I'm not a big fan of. I don't really think he fits here. He's more of like a 3-4 D end, which I know we use, but it's not really what we're looking for right now. So I don't really think we're going to go after him that much. That's a guy that you could probably get for a seventh round pick, but again, I just don't know how much that helps us. Kayvon Thibodeau is a one that we've heard a lot, but he's going to probably get a second round pick, if not more. Maybe you could get him for a third, but we don't even have one. So that's not even worth discussing at this point. Um, Obviously, he's the best one on the list, and that's why he's going to be the most valuable. And he's got 2 years left on his deal. So would be a good good idea for the Lions, but logistically, it just doesn't really make a lot of sense. As much as we'd love to have that, that'd be insane to have Thibodeau and Hutchinson on the same line. In terms of hindsight from that draft, it
Oh
would just
yeah.
be a really, really funny thing. And then Calais Campbell is the last one from Arizona, which I assume is the guy you were going to mention.
Yep.
He's a guy that I really like, but again, I just don't know how much he fits what we're looking for right now because I think Marcus Davenport, and don't get me wrong, I think Calais Campbell is probably better than Marcus Davenport right now. But once Marcus Davenport comes back, it's kind of going to be like, when do we play each of you? You know what I mean? Like they're very similar in terms of what they can do for us. Obviously, I think Davenport can play a little bit more outside than Calais can, but I think they both play similar roles. So as much as I love Calais Campbell, and like we talked about last week, that's probably one of my top choices. Like I would love to get Arden Key and Calais Campbell for a sixth and a seventh round pick. That'd be awesome. But I think there's a lot of redundancy with Campbell with the guys that we already have. So if we did sign him or trade for him, I would feel a little lackluster. Like, okay, but where's the pass rush coming? You know what I'm saying? It's still
Yeah.
not really what we want in that front.
Yeah. Calais Campbell's a guy I've always admired from afar. He just plays the game the right way. He's whatever the opposite of a locker room cancer is. He's just a team leader. He's just a professional personified, and he's just been a solid player. I know he's up there in age, um, and he's a guy that I would love to see in a Lions uniform. And I think it's more so for just the aesthetic of seeing him in a Lions uniform than it would be to help the team. Kind of like when the Lions signed Dwight Freeney or Adrian
Hmm.
Peterson. As cool as it was to see him in a Lions uniform, their best days were behind them. And so I mean I wouldn't mind Campbell by any means, but I just don't know how much he helps us, as you mentioned. And then in terms of Thibodeau, I mean, I would love to see it, but you're right. That would cost more than anyone else we talked about, and I just think the price would be too high with that. And then the only other person I forgot to mention Chubb, but as you mentioned, good player, but almost every other point on him is moot after you find out he's making 30 million a year. So with that
Hmm.
contract, you if you were playing like a $30 million a year defensive end, you wouldn't be on the trade block. So, he's a valuable asset and he's someone I would target if he was just a random free agent and we can talk
Hmm.
contract. But as someone that has that price tag already attached to him, I'm completely out.
Yeah, and I can't disagree with that. And then, so moving on from our trade possibilities, let's get to the game this week. We're going to try to kind of go through this somewhat quick because we did take a long time talking trades today, which trade deadline's coming up. Makes sense why we'd spend a little bit more time on that. Um, my keys against Minnesota are, I think, the same keys that I've had for the last 7 weeks in a row for every team that we play. It seems to be where we have a pattern here. So it's pressure JJ, stop the run. How will our DBs look against their wide receivers? The only real new one is Goff versus Minnesota's blitz and pass rush because that's caused issues in the years past since they have added their defensive coordinator. I cannot remember his last name.
Brian
Brian
like Flores or something like that.
Brian Flores. Yes, okay,
Okay.
Brian Flores. I don't know why, but I just spaced on his last name for a second. But that's really all it is. Like our run game has to be good because statistically, Minnesota's defense is 14th total in total yards allowed, fourth against the pass, but 21st versus the run, and 19th in points. So I think it's obvious what we're going to try to do to them this weekend. Run the football because they're gonna make it hard for Goff in so many different ways to throw the ball, and they've made it hard for everybody they play so far this season. So that's really my only worries is, are we going to be able to limit the turnovers and the issues from Goff this week? Because I mean, last year when we played him, he had a lot of issues, especially in that first half. Even though we won the game, he did not look great in that first half. Now, with that being said, obviously Minnesota's offense is going to cause us some issues with their wide receivers, but that's really all I'm kind of worried about with them. The Lions' defense this year is fourth in total yards, fourth against the run, and then I think it was 11th against the pass. So defense is not my worry at all. Pretty much every week since I think we played the Ravens. I think that was the last time I was like actually worried about the defense, and then they showed who they really are. So I'm not worried about it anymore. Um, but with that being said, I do think the Lions should. I'm not going to say win this easily, but I think we should win this game. I would say by at least a touchdown. Obviously, it's a divisional game, a divisional opponent, so it's going to be a tougher one. But I think JJ not playing for the last however many weeks in a row, coming off an injury. And then, like I said, their run defense just isn't that good. So I'm not really that worried about this game this week. And I expect our run game to get the job done.
I agree with you. My biggest keys or things I wanted to keep an eye on is exactly how does JJ look? Because he, how do I want to word it? Before he went out with an injury, there was a debate going on, should they just bench him? And now with Wentz
Mhm.
hurt and him being at least healthy enough, their hand is kind of forced. And I love JJ McCarthy. I wish him the best, except for this weekend. Um, I would never forget, winning the national championship and whatnot with Michigan, but right now he's a Viking. So um, against the NFL defenses, he hasn't looked good yet. I mean, he is a rookie, so I'll cut him some slack. But when you have conversations of should he be benched before he's dealing with an injury, and he's missed at least a month. I think it was 5 weeks, but I'll be safe and say at least a month. And then he's coming off again, or now he's coming back against the Lions, who, in my opinion, are a top 2 or 3 team in the whole league. That's a matchup that's just not good for him. Plus, we have McNeil back. Plus, we have, I mean, he's always motivated and he always plays his ass off, but I'm going to assume an extra motivated Hutch. Um, I just don't see this going well for the Vikings. Fortunate for us. And then the only other thing besides JJ I wanted to look at is I wanted to see what our defense looks like mixing and matching. I don't know if it played to their success last week, but since we had an entire backup defensive back unit, backup safeties, backup corners, those are the guys that get reps all day, every day together on scout teams, their communications well, stuff like that. I want to know, okay, it's up in the air about Kirby. I haven't heard anything either way. I know he missed practice today, but he could just be resting his knee for the game. Don't know. Branch will be back from his suspension. Terry Arnold's on track to play by all accounts. But obviously, as you mentioned before, DJ Reed's still out. Kirby's up in the air. So we might have half starters, half not. Are they still going to have that level of communication? Are they still going to be able to avoid the breakdown? Because, of course, Branch and Arnold are better players. That's why they're starters. But I wonder if it throws enough of a wrench into the logistics and the kind of the unthought of part of the game of football. Um, but other than that, I agree with you. I think we're going to run it down their throats. Um, I don't see Vikings putting up much of a fight, to be honest. I think JJ's going to struggle as he did before, and I think Gibbs and Montgomery are just going to do their thing. And if we have to, Goff will do his. Flores loves the blitz, and Goff, I wish I had the numbers in front of me, but I don't, is one of the best quarterbacks in the league versus the blitz. If you can get to him, obviously that's good, but while those linebackers or safeties or wherever you're sending the blitz from are running at Goff, they're leaving giant voids, and Goff is pretty good at finding them. And then obviously we've mentioned all the time about how much talent we have between Laporta, JMO, St. Brown, etc. So you don't want to leave those gaps. Goff will find them, or we'll just run one of our many screens. I just don't see us having a big issue with this game. I see us winning, I'll say 42-17. Like I
Wow.
see this, yeah, I see this not being much of a contest. I might even say out of the 17, that might be a garbage time touchdown to go from 10 to 17.
Okay. I don't necessarily see it that way. I agree with you and everything you said before that part. Because I
That's
do think
fine.
it's going to be a lot closer. Just simply because of like, I do think the Lions are going to kind of limit their passing game a little bit in terms of like why go out there and risk it when we know we can run this ball. And I think that's going to take a lot of the clock down. I think the Lions end up winning this game 30-13. I think that it's going to be obviously we're going to dominate the game for the most part, but I think it'll be close in the first half specifically, like maybe 10-0 or 10-3, Lions up obviously or something along those lines, up by around 10 points or so, and then we just kind of take off in the second half, especially offensively. I do think the Vikings turn the ball over once or twice, and that kind of plays into our hand. But like I said, I just think the Lions are going to churn it out on offense. So with that being said, to finish up our NFL segment, our games of the week, this week, we both have Kansas City at Buffalo. So we'll just kind of talk about that first. Obviously, this is game of the week every week, no matter what games are going on. Kansas City Buffalo has been like Dallas 49ers of the last 5 years. So always really, really fun. Always a lot of fireworks, explosions, and big plays going on. So I am excited to see this game. Obviously, the Chiefs are coming off a couple good games in a row. They just got Rashi Rice back. So I expect the Chiefs to come in ready to go. But same thing with the Bills. I mean, the Bills are a great team this year. They're the best team at running the football. James Cook's been doing his thing. And Kansas City's run defense has been solid, but not elite this year. So I could see it going either way. I do think Buffalo ends up winning this one though. It seems like Buffalo's been winning the last couple against Kansas City. I might be wrong about that, but seems like my memory. I feel like I remember Buffalo won the last one as well. So I think Josh Allen is gonna get it done this week against Kansas City. And then my second game of the week is Denver at Houston, which this one is not quite a battle of the juggernauts uh, like Buffalo, Kansas City is, but nonetheless, still a pretty good game. And I am kind of anxious to see how the Houston offense is going to look against the vaunted Broncos defense, specifically the pass rush. So that's kind of why I picked Denver Houston for my second game of the week. The Houston Texans have not been that good this year. The Broncos have been kind of up and down. I do think either team can win the game, but I do think the Broncos are going to take that one. Um, but with that being said, what is your second game of the week?
My second game of the week is Chicago at Cincinnati. I don't think this is going to be a non-NFC North fans matchup. This is very much chosen because they are a division rival. Cincinnati is not the best team, but they have looked formidable at times. And with the Bears being 4-1 the last 5 games, I feel like this could be a trap game for them. They can't walk in there thinking it's easy. They are in Cincinnati, and I know they still don't have Burrow, but they still have Chase, who you can never count out. He's already had, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, 2 games this year of over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. I know he had that against the Lions. I mean, obviously it didn't help him win, but like he did his part for sure. And I don't know if I'm really buying the Bears yet in terms of like true contenders. I do have, or all off season, I have been saying they've been a much improved team. But to be honest, through the first half of the season, they don't look as good um, with the eye test as I thought they would. Their record's pretty solid, but they're winning some of these games that I'm just like, one play, don't get me wrong, you can say this for a lot of games too, but one play the other way, and like that whole thing would have been different. They're not soundly winning. They're not, resting Caleb Williams in the fourth quarter like we do golf or anything like that. And I just feel like if they come into Cincinnati and feel like, oh, it's just the Bengals, they only have a couple wins, whatever. I feel like they could be walking out with an L if they take Cincinnati lightly. So I feel like that would be a good game to keep an eye on for NFC North fans.
Yeah, for sure. And there's also rumors, not rumors, but there's potential that Joe Flacco doesn't play. So that could be another reason why the Bears may take them even a little bit easier, because they think they're playing Jake Browning. So
I have not
with
heard
that,
that.
yeah, he's got some AC joint issue, so there's a
I
chance he
know he was a
doesn't
little
play.
banged up, but I thought he was expected to play through. Hmm. Oh,
Yeah,
more intrigue.
yeah. But with that being said, we will move on to our final segment of the show. But before we do that, y'all know what to do. Link in the description. Check out Fanatics. Get everything that you could think of sports wise. I got this shirt jersey off of Fanatics for pretty cheap too. Go check them out. They've always got some good deals going. Link is in the description. But with that being said, Michigan State happened. Pretty much exactly what we thought would happen. The first half though was a little scary as a Michigan fan. I was like, shit, I don't know what's going to happen here. Childs did not have a very good first half, but to be fair, neither did Underwood. So it was just kind of like a little more up in the air. And then the Michigan run game just kind of took off. Obviously, Underwood only had 86 yards on 17 attempts. Really not great. Obviously, we scored 31 points, but that's because Justice Haynes had 26 carries for 152 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now, I'm not going to say I'm worried about Bryce Underwood. So when I say what I'm about to say, that's not what I mean. What I am saying is I need to see more right now because with what we're paying this kid, I know he's a true freshman. I get it. He hasn't really had that like wow game yet. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, he might have had some good stats against fucking Central Michigan. You know what I mean? Or whatever bad school we played at the beginning of the season. But when it gets into these kind of games, where they're gritty, they're physical, they're hard fought, he just doesn't seem to really look that good. I mean, obviously against Oklahoma, not great. USC, when we play Michigan State, not great. And it's just one of those things where hopefully as time goes, he will just get better. But as of right now, I just need to see more from him. But with that being said, the game went as we expected on kind of both sides of the ball. You know what I mean? Like especially in the second half, that's more of what I expected. And Michigan's probably going to have a similar game this week against Purdue. I don't think they're going to cover the spread though of 21 and a half points or 21 points, whatever it is. But
It's 21 flat, which I find very
oh,
strange. At least that's the number I saw.
huh, that's odd. So 21 points, I think that's a little too much right now for Michigan to cover against Purdue, but Purdue is bad and coming into the game 2-6. So I do think we're going to win this game by quite a bit. I just don't know if it's going to be by 3 touchdowns. Um, but with that being said, Michigan still has a decent amount of season to play, and obviously we're probably not a playoff team this year, like a lot of people might have thought coming into the season. But there's a chance that as the season goes, we can just keep getting better and then roll into next year as a playoff team because we're going to get more transfers. We're going to get more players. These players are going to get better. So I'm not going to say the jury is out by any means, but I just need to see more. And I think that's in general with the Michigan team, defensively as well. The defense just has been pretty good all year, but it has lapses that scare me. So those are my 2 cents on the Michigan State game and then the upcoming Michigan Purdue game. What's your thoughts?
I'll start with the state game, and the one thing, because I've been a pretty, I'll say strict defender on Underwood this season because overall, statistically speaking, he has not had a great year. And I'll come on here week in and week out saying, well, he's only 18. Well, he's a true freshman and not too many true freshmen play, yada, yada, yada. This is the first game that I'll say, like, come on, dude. Like,
Same.
I we try to, let me rephrase. I'll try to be more fair to state, especially now that we're just covering football, but it's not exactly a shock that your team's not very good. You're 3-5. And you haven't played too hard of a schedule. This was a game I thought would be Bryce Underwood's like coming out party. I thought he might have like 250 yards, couple touchdowns, or maybe like 150 yards, but another like 80 rushing. And he did not do much combined between rushing and passing. He only had 112 yards, and like that's not enough. So we won the game handily. We had 47 runs to 17 passes, so we kept the ball on the ground all game. So with those numbers in mind, like he didn't play dreadful. He didn't have an interception, but he still was under 50% accuracy. And I'm just like, I know we don't have that great of receivers, but this is week one of me being like, all right, man, come on. Like, I
Yeah.
want to defend you, and I like obviously this isn't the finished product, as you mentioned. I am expecting a huge leap from what he would look like a year from now. But I thought this would be a game where we saw the flashes, and maybe if he didn't even have a whole game, he has two or three throws that you're like, all right, next year he'll make five or six, and then but yeah, it was pretty much just an old school ground and pound game, and we didn't have much, practically any. You know what? Under 100 yards, I'll say you don't have any passing game.
Hmm.
Under 100 yards, under 50% completion percentage. Um, it like don't get me wrong, we won the game. It was pretty decisive, even though it was only 11 points. But Bryce Underwood has to do better and I'm hoping that, especially in a rivalry game, your first ever Michigan State game, he's from Michigan, he's from
Hmm.
Belleville, and like this game should have meant more to him. And I'm not saying it didn't, but it didn't reflect in his play.
Hmm.
So as much as I like the guy, hopefully this lit a little fire under him. And you can learn a lot from losses, but I'm hoping you can learn from wins. Um, because this kind of stuff it will fly against the Michigan States. It will fly against the Purdue's. It won't cost you games,
Hmm.
but it will for sure against the Oklahomas and the USC's and the Ohio States, which I know we mentioned in prior podcasts. We're not looking forward to that one. Um, yeah, you can't come out with under 50% completion percentage and under 100 yards against Ohio State and hope to win that game. That's just not
No.
happening.
No, and
So
I mean statistically, I think anyone would agree it was just terrible, like just a terrible game statistically. Now, the eye test maybe wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great either, so
correct. Yeah, he's had a few throws in a few games where it's bounced off the receiver's hands. I want to say it was it Indiana? Maybe it was Oklahoma. I remember red jerseys on the other team. But he had an over-the-shoulder throw. He hits the receiver perfectly and it both his hands over the shoulder for what would have been a touchdown, and he flat drops it.
hmm.
So in the stat book, that count goes as 0 for 1. But when you watch the game, you're like, okay, well, what could have been? What should have been?
Hmm.
But yeah, this is one of those games where I do think he looked better with the eye test than the stats show, but as you said, it still wasn't much better. The
Yeah.
stats looked dreadful, and he looked to me average to below average.
Hmm.
So, like I said, against under 500 Michigan State team in your first ever Michigan State rivalry, I just expected more.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
I can't disagree with you there. And then speaking of Michigan State, they take on Minnesota this week, which they'll probably lose that game. Minnesota's coming into it 5-3. MSU's going into it 3-5. I could see it go either way, but Minnesota currently is only 3-point favorites, which I would expect it to be a little bit more than that. I was expecting about a touchdown, but it makes sense being at home that Minnesota gets the favorite. But that's another reason why I expected it to be even a little bit more than that. Obviously, Michigan State has not been playing well this year, and a lot of people think they should fire their head coach, which I don't really. I don't really love to sit here and talk about firing coaches and all that, but at the same time, it feels like the writing's on the wall at this point. And unfortunately for Michigan State, they can't seem to get their coach right. I mean, since D'Antoni, it's just or D'Antoni. Am I saying it right?
Isn't it D'Antoni?
Is it D'Antonio?
Isn't that the basketball coach?
Okay, I always get them mixed up. That's why because it didn't sound right when I said it, but I
To
think it is
Google.
D'Antoni. But since him, MSU really has not found a good coach. I mean, Mel Tucker
No,
and now Jonathan Smith.
brain fade. You can tell we're Michigan fans. Basketball coach is Tom Izzo.
No, no, no.
Duh.
Yeah, no. Not Michigan State's basketball coach, but D'Antonio is a basketball coach
Oh, that I don't know. I'm
for
trying
the
to find their
NBA.
football coach that gave us fits. It seems like it was 20 years ago now.
Yeah, I think it's Mark D'Antoni.
That sounds right.
It's Mark D'Antonio. Okay, so I was right. I
That's
knew I
what.
said it
Okay,
wrong.
yeah. I
And
saw him
then
like D'Antonio.
D'Antonio's the basketball coach. He coached for the Rockets. Mike D'Antoni. He coached for the Rockets back in
Okay.
like 5-6 years ago. But I always got those guys mixed up because they were coaching at the same time. But D'Antonio gave us issues. Since then, we have not really had many issues. Mel Tucker obviously had his own issues. And then and then Smith now.
You can knock.
And then Smith now, has his own issues. So it's like they can't seem to figure it out, but hopefully for them they do. And it does seem like they're going to fire him probably before the season's over. Honestly, if they lose to Minnesota, I would not be surprised if he gets fired right after the game.
Really?
Just because, man, like Michigan State fans are really upset with this guy right now. Apparently, there's a lot of
Isn't
stuff
this
that he
his first
says.
year?
I think it's his second or third year.
Okay, because it's
Yeah,
Jonathan Smith now, right?
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, breaking news. The Lions are looking to bolster their pass rush. Okay.
Phillips or Key, we talked about it here.
Right. As if we didn't know that already, guys. But anyway, point is
Are they listening to the show? We're their source.
right.
We know
Um
football, but you might find a better source out there.
well, I don't know about that one, Chief. We're the best source, period, about anything. You ask me about spinach dip, I'll tell you whatever you need to know. No.
That's all you, man. I won't touch it.
Point is, hopefully Michigan State can find a new coach and soon because it's not looking good over there on the other side of the state from Ann Arbor. So, with that being said, though, that'll do it for this show. As always, we appreciate you guys for watching. You can find me at JSoSweet, James at Gullet_James, both of us at MIFB Network, and both of us at MichiganFootballNetwork.com. As I mentioned before, check out the latest articles before the trade deadline happens. I think next Tuesday is the trade deadline at 4 p.m. So get ready. It's going to get crazy. But check it out, and we will see you guys on the next one.